Accessing library computer data.
Out there are no saints. Just people.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Continuing our run through of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Right now we're up to the episode called You Are Cordially Invited. It is the 7th episode of the 6th season, aired on November 10th, 1997, written by Ronald D. Moore, Klingon expert, directed by David Livingston. In this episode, the matriarch of the House of Martok challenges Worf and Dax's marriage. Just kidding, they get married anyway. That's the episode. We're joined by Clay. Clay, how are you?
Good. I wish there was a scene where Martok was like, Worf, your son is awful. Because it's like, that's his whole character.
All I can think about, yeah. No, you mean Alexander.
I had to get him off my ship, actually, because he's just the worst.
It's a pretty good Martok, actually. I think that, I guess it kind of ties into the whole thing. I kind of like Alexander's portrayal in this for some reason. It's a little bit off the beaten path, and he's a little bit, he's super corny in this to a way that I almost think that Worf wouldn't really be understanding of him. But I don't mind it all that bad, although I think that'll probably spread to the whole episode. So do you want to give us... Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, he reminds me of... have you seen Tropic Thunder?
Yes.
Do you remember Matthew McConaughey's son in Tropic Thunder?
No, I don't. Who plays him?
It's just a stupid joke on the side where Ben Stiller's talking about adopting a kid, and Matthew McConaughey's like, yeah, that's great. Some of us, we don't get to choose who our son is, and they cut to a picture of him and his son's just this like moping dork of a kid.
Yeah.
That's how I feel like the relationship with Worf and Alexander is.
Yeah. Do you want to give us a cut to the audio clip with the Martok voiceover?
Sorry, you cut out there for a second.
Oh, do you want to give us Martok introducing the audio clip?
Worf, play the clip. That wasn't very good.
We're going to play an audio clip. We're going to come back and we're going to break down. You are cordially invited.
Play this clip in front of my wife, who I don't like, but I still love.
Save your breath. Worf's gone too far, and now it's over. Do you know what he wanted me to do? He wanted me to go crawling on my hands and knees to Sorella to beg her forgiveness. Beg her! Me! I was once the Federation ambassador to the Klingon Empire. I negotiated the Khitomer Accords before Worf was even born.
Curzon negotiated the Accords. And I've got news for you, old man. You're not Curzon anymore.
And what the hell is that supposed to mean?
It means that you can't expect Sorella to treat you like Curzon just because you carry his memories. To her, you're just a young woman who decided to marry into her family. If it means you have to bow down and kiss her boots, that's exactly what you have to do. And you knew that. The moment you decided to marry Worf, you knew that sooner or later, you'd have to bow down and show her the respect that she's due.
All right, so a wedding episode. We've got our come down episode from the heights and the stress and the anxiety and the high blood pressure of the past 6 episodes. And as DS9 usually does, it usually follows up these two-parters and longer arcs with a little bit of a come down episode. I think this one's appropriate, where the other ones maybe sometimes didn't feel appropriate. They start this one off by saying, you know what, the war's still going on, but it feels good to be home. Let's have a lighthearted little adventure. Clay, what did you think of this one, a wedding-themed Star Trek episode?
I liked it. I thought it was good. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it going in, but I've never had a problem with the relationship between Dax and Worf. So I wasn't surprised that this one was good. It was it was fairly one note. I feel like it's sort of a expansion of what they've been doing with them all the way up to this point, which is, Worf's a Klingon and Dax isn't, and how will they ever manage to coexist? It's sort of like the big version of that. But I thought it was fun. I thought the bachelor party thing was fun. The bachelor party thing didn't super land with me until the clip of O'Brien and Bashir hanging from over the coals, and then he's like, "I've had a vision.
killing Worf.
I'm going to kill Worf.
I thought it was worth it all for the at the end of the ceremony. Bashir was like, "Can we hit him now?" Martok says, "Not yet, not yet." I thought those jokes worked pretty well. Like the bachelor party thing was better in the responses of the crew members to it than it was like the concept of the bachelor party. I thought, like you were saying, where they're hanging over the coals and then attacking them at the very end and stuff like that. I like this one just because it's I feel like it's lighthearted, but it actually works. You know, like the Ferengi episodes you can say are lighthearted, but I don't feel like the comedy works there a lot of the time. Here I thought it's pretty solid. You know, it's like standard PG rated syndicated television comedy stuff where it's like, oh, you guys are hungry, you can't have your food. But I think it works for how, like, you know, the charming aspect of that Star Trek can sometimes be. I think this one manages it.
Yeah, I thought they put together a pretty good contrast to the way that they're handling everything. Of course, Worf is doing the very traditional bachelor party that sucks, whereas Dax has to break free from the shittiness of her potential mother-in-law by having like a blowout party, which was fun. I thought the party scene was fun, except. Man, she really she really was gonna do something with that Hawaiian lieutenant. Huh? I don't know what was gonna happen there.
They didn't really touch on the cultural appropriation of that guy's culture for entertainment either. But they also she's definitely implying that she's going to fuck that guy. I
think she was gonna appropriate something other than his culture.
I liked that party scene. It was kind of like what I was kind of struck by this, and we've talked about this before, but I think an episode like this really highlights the difference between the DS9 characters and the TNG characters, where, you know, a party on TNG always felt like a forced office party. And it felt very uptight, and they're eating cake and everything and hanging out with each other in their uniforms. Where I think the DS9 show really just excels, even if you might say that the TNG characters are like your favorite characters, or you prefer them as characters over the DS9 people. I think the ensemble working together works better on DS9 in a more realistic fashion than TNG ever did.
Yeah, parties on TNG, you could tell it was a party because they were leaning against the bar, and that was about it.
Yeah.
And they were drinking a different colored liquid. They were generally pretty. It seemed like they were all parties that were planned and
there's an agenda to the party,
and put together by Picard specifically, where he's like, everyone will be here at 7:00 on the dot, and you're like, all right, we're gonna hang around, and it's one of those ones like where is it Office Space where they have the birthday party and people just keep talking about paper?
Yes.
No, I think it's The Office. I think it was an episode of The Office where they. Yeah, they have a party and everybody from the office goes to the party, and then they just end up talking about paper the whole time.
Yep.
That feels like a TNG party.
That's very much that's a very realistic portrayal of office parties, though. People talk about work at the office party. You'll get fired for anything else.
It's funny. I've never really experienced that because I don't have office parties. The closest thing I have to an office party is when, after a convention you go to a bar afterwards. Yeah. And I don't know if it just feels different because we're talking about like comic books, but it doesn't feel like that as much. Where it feels like most of the time we end up talking about something else. But
yeah, no, I'd say as someone who works in an office, it is funny, but it's like it's the only thing you have in common with these people. So it's I would describe it as a relaxed work conversation where you're more. You're talking about work, but it's not like in a work environment where you're talking about the nuts and bolts of it. So it's a little bit different, but it's the same thing. But it's really all you know about these people without crossing a line into like inappropriate conversation that you have to be you have to be careful about. I have
had experiences though where my girlfriend will be with me and I'll be talking to a fellow comic book artist, usually like Sean or something, and she'll hang with us for the most part. But then if we start talking like technical stuff, like pens or paper or something like that, she's like, okay, I'm gonna go because I can't feign interest in paper weights and different pen nibs, so let me know when you guys are done. I'm like, all right.
There's an art.
Do not blame her.
No, there's an art to that kind of conversation. What's the last bachelor party you went to?
Oh, geez. The last bachelor party I went to was...
You went to one in Montreal. I don't know. Remember who was that?
that was Dave's. That was a while ago.
That was a while
Probably.
ago.
Shit. Who was the last of our friends to get married?
Did Greg
Pat, maybe?
What's that?
I think it might have been Pat.
Oh, okay.
Pat. Yeah, Pat. Greg actually has not had a bachelor party yet. Because they did that thing where like they got married just in a small ceremony, and then they're like, we'll do all that stuff later. And they never do that stuff later.
Yeah.
And Greg, if you're listening, we're throwing you a bachelor party. You're not going to get out of it, and you're not going to know when it's going to happen. You're just going to get a bag over your head, and you're going to wake up in front of Kowloon on Route 1.
I never had a bachelor party either.
Hold it. Wait. Is this your way of asking for one?
I was like, Clay, do you not remember not going to my bachelor party? You missed that. You missed that subtle cue. No, I never had a bachelor party, which is I'm torn on bachelor parties, which is like in like the wedding aspect here of what's going on. I think the wedding and the show and everything does a pretty good job of, I think they subtly capture that everyone in the audience is kind of bored by what's going on and they can't wait to get out of there. But I think the bachelor party aspect was kind of fun to think about. Just like, I was interested that the show kept it relatively close to what bachelor parties kind of are in a way that maybe wasn't even intentional, but the Bachelorette and the bachelor party kind of struck me as like very real experiences. I don't know if I don't know if I've ever been on a bachelor party quite like the one that Worf had. Yeah, with the fasting and everything like that. It's usually the opposite. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like there's kind of two versions of it, and I think they kind of get across both versions of it here. Where you have the one where it's like, okay, this is the thing that we are doing, and then it will be done, and we will all go home, versus the one that's just like a crazy party. Right. Well, I think Dax represents what like the traditional bachelorette party kind of is, and Worf's represents the other spectrum, which is like, we're not going to do anything lewd, but we're going to do an activity that the groom likes to do. Yes. Yeah. And I've been on both events, and it really depends on like the groom. The reason I didn't want to have a bachelor party is because I am the personality that hates assuming other people are going to want to do what I want to do. Sort of, and it makes me very uncomfortable. I never like throwing parties because I'm always hyper aware of like, I don't think people are enjoying this nearly as much as I am, and it's a very like upsetting thing to me. So I didn't want to do it. Although I've never had a bad time at a bachelor party. Some of them have gone on a little bit too long, and I wanted to leave after a couple days. But outside of that, lewd or not lewd, they all kind of. I think they just kind of match weddings for me at this point. Like I've seen so many of them that the novelty is kind of the bloom is off the rose or whatever that saying is. Yeah. They vary for me. I'm not a big fan of strip clubs. So anytime that I'm on a bachelor party where we go to a strip club, I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'll go have a beer for a while. They're fairly. Amy also hates strip clubs, so unless I want to get into a fight about strip clubs, it's difficult to pull them off. It's not even. I wouldn't even say it's her fault, but I kind of agree. Like I don't understand the concept of it. Like I don't know why. I don't know what kind of brain you need. Because I've been to some bachelor parties where there are some people that I don't know, like they're friends of the groom that I am unfamiliar with, who they are very excited by the strippers. Like in a way that I'm like, do you have the internet at your house? Like, are you aware of what you could find out there? Like some people are really, some dudes are just really into strippers. And I'm just not that way. Yeah. I will say the one story that I will tell is at Dave's bachelor party, his best man, friend of the show, Sean Cordy, did take the most best man-esque hit for the team I've ever seen, where we were at a strip club in Montreal, and they were trying to do this thing where they were trying to get Dave to go up on the stage, and they were going to, basically torture him for like 10 minutes. And he absolutely refused to do it. Yeah. And I think it was one of those things where like Sean had paid for it beforehand or something, and he was like, if you're not going to do it, I'm going to do it. And so he went up and he basically literally took one for the team, staring at Dave the whole time, being like, I'm doing this for you, Dave. While he had a stripper like whipping him with his own belt in the ass or something. Yeah, there's no refunds.
Good on
at
him.
Joints like that, I don't think, unfortunately.
Surprisingly not.
There's always a $1 ham sandwich in the back, though. Make sure you make sure you hit up the bar, get a beer, and get a sandwich.
I will say, Montreal. The only thing that almost got me to like get into the strip club thing was that I had had so many like Molson Dries by that point that I never wanted another beer in my life. Like it wasn't because I was drunk. It was just the worst beer I had. It was the only thing that they had at these bars and strip clubs.
Yeah.
And it was just like the worst possible option for a beer.
I got yelled at by a stripper too at one time, and which kind of put me off a little bit. I was like, I'm trying to give you money, goddammit. Like it was it was a very I don't know. I don't like.
Did you pay in quarters or something?
No, I was like holding the money, and it was almost like I think she was just trying to like play up the angle of like make me work for it, trying to be like a kind of a sexy thing. But I didn't appreciate her tone and the way that she approached the topic. So
I would love to see that because it sounds like you are basically what Worf at a strip club would be like.
basically, it's there's something just a little bit off about them.
I do think that's the one thing that they could have done in this episode if they had the time that I think would have been fun.
Have a stripper yell at Worf about something.
No, if they had let the other guys try to throw him a bachelor party, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And just watch him be uncomfortable with all this other stuff. I'm actually kind of surprised that's not the route that they went, especially when you have the other stuff of Dax doing all this weird Klingon. It seems ripe for you've got Dax doing the traditional Klingon stuff which she hates, and then you've got Worf being taken out on a traditional quote unquote traditional Earth bachelor party which he hates, that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. No one's happy with it, and then to get that actually seems like a more realistic approach to the real life bachelor party into the wedding type thing.
Yeah.
Just to have the bride and groom both like anxious to get everything over with, I think, at that point, and like resume a normal life. But yeah, I think this is I like this episode. I like the comedy of it. It is scandalous because the Klingon calls Dax a slut at some point, which is remarkable for Star Trek. I think
I was very surprised by that.
I would be more understanding of like slut is just such a nasty word. Like horror would have raised my eyebrows, but it wouldn't have like knocked me on my seat the way that the harlot, the way that slut does here. Flim flam woman,
woman of loose morals.
And I think it's got a pretty decent Dax moment. I thought that they did a pretty good job with the scene where Sisko's talking to her and he's like, listen, you're 400 years old, like time to grow up and stuff like that. I thought that was a neat use of the Dax character. And I liked even Martok's, you kind of made fun of it at the start about loving his wife, even though she's kind of a horrible person.
Yes.
I thought it was a decent speech from him, actually. Like it's
it
was a well-written romance relationship speech in a series that sometimes horribly whiffs on that stuff, especially in TNG. It was pretty awful. But here I thought they did a pretty good job.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the only thing that I felt like was missing, but obviously it wasn't really the point of the episode, so I can see why they didn't have enough time to tie it up, was I thought that the Dax and mother-in-law story never really resolved itself. They just kind of had that scene at the end where she's like, I welcome my daughter to the family or whatever. There was never a moment where they kind of made peace with each other before that.
No.
Or that showed that Dax was willing to do what she had to do to be part of the family after all or whatever. But, you only have so much time. And I think that's lower on the list of things they had to worry about.
What do you think of the big thing here, Sisko's speech, is that Dax, you have to suck it up. And, you got into this knowing that she's a Klingon. You have to suck up your pride and you have to kiss the rings, basically. Mm-hmm. What do you think of that in terms of the show and in terms of real life?
It's interesting because, I think it comes back to this lax definition of exactly what Dax is as far as the relationship between the Trill and the host. Because I feel like they could have got into some conflict there where, like, Jadzia has all these feelings for Worf, but Dax is like, I don't really know what, you know what I mean? Like having some sort of like, use that as an excuse to have an emotional split or an emotional turmoil, because he just talks to her so much as though he's talking to this entity that's however old it is.
Right.
That I appreciate the speech, because I guess you have to pick a lane with that. But it would have been interesting if they had been able to do something like that, where they kind of made it a little bit more gray and whatnot, as far as where her emotions were coming from.
Yeah, I suppose I have I always wonder about whether or not like the Klingon approach would be to like accept someone who's like submissive to you, I guess, is kind of a strange thing. Like I always think that Dax should have fought back, and it seems like the kind of cliche plot where Dax would be meek and sort of like wanting to please at the start, but then she like breaks and she sort of fights back at the end, and the Klingon's like, finally, you've proven you have the spirit of a warrior. You may marry my son.
I was kind of thinking that's what was going to happen when she punched her at the party.
Yeah.
I thought it was like, oh, okay. I assumed that was going to be where the mother-in-law finally developed some love for her or whatever, but that wasn't how they went with it. But
no, it's just she's kind of an interesting character. The mother-in-law, I can't remember what her name is, something like Strilka or something, but I think it's a pretty good performance for a female Klingon. It makes
that we've never seen before.
Yeah, I think she's different from like Lursa and B'Etor. She's much more of a traditional like royalty type figure, I think.
Yeah.
And I think it makes sense within the Klingons, and I think it makes sense with her and Martok and everything like that. I think it's a good performance, good writing, and it doesn't go the cliche way with Dax, and I kind of appreciate it for that, even if I don't think that it really sorts itself out by the end. Yeah,
I kind of wish that she would come back. I don't know if she does. Just because they don't really have any interaction, her and Martok.
Yeah. They seem like a good pair to see. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be fun to see like a couple scenes with the two of them just, apparently not liking each other and definitely not having sex.
But they are Klingons. I had to do the when I proposed to Amy, she accepted, and then she's like, "Oh, did you ask my father?" I was like, "No. Why would I do that?" And she's like, "Well, my parents are fairly old-fashioned about this stuff. You should probably have asked them and things like that. You should probably." But I related to this like kissing the ring type thing here.
Oh yeah.
So I did it, but it was an incredibly awkward conversation. Like I don't even know like. I'm going through this basically like I have to sign the contract. Like I'm like, yeah, I'm going to get this all out of the way. It's like I don't really like if you say no, what am I going to do? Not marry your daughter? So like, well, I don't know why we're having this conversation. Yeah. But I thought it was weird. Sisko's. I don't know if I agree with Sisko's point of like suck up your pride and do this like for the better. I understand you want to make the peace and just kind of like get your wedding over with and then move on and not have like a ruffled feathers with your in-laws or something, but. I always find that a little bit strange. It's a weird thing to sort of bow down to the parents in this old-fashioned way where they still think that they're treating their daughter or son like some kind of property that needs to be like taken away from them. It's a little bit strange that Star Trek held on to that in the 24th century.
Yeah, it's. I feel like it would have made a little more sense. Not that it doesn't make sense, because I think it's fine. But if Dax had been completely dismissive of everything from the start, like, because she was putting the effort in, and she was the mother-in-law was just being extra hard on her. But the way that Sisko is talking to her is as though she does not care whatsoever about any of the traditions, when that's not really true. Right.
Worf's being extra difficult with her too. She's got a point about the candles. It's like, why do you want me to go get just these candles are fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's Dax has always kind of managed to do that to her benefit, where Worf will be uptight about something and she'll be like, no, it's not that big of a deal. We're still going to do it, but we're just not going to do it as hardcore as you think it needs to be done, and it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And that's what she continues here, and it doesn't work. But the way there was never like that scene with Sisko. There was not. She doesn't really have a retort about saying like, I tried my best, and this is stupid. I'm doing this for him. Blah blah. You know, that wasn't there. I don't think.
Yeah.
At least I don't remember it being. And I think that maybe would have made it a little bit more accurate to how she is, because it's not that I mean, she clearly cares about Klingon tradition.
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
And it's not like she's just looking at her phone while she's being taught the history of whatever. I actually thought the history scene was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Because it kind of brings out how bullshit some of that stuff is.
Yeah.
It actually reminded me, I have this big book on Scotland that I was reading a while ago, and one of the interesting things about it was at a certain point in Scottish history, they wrote down the history of the kings of Scotland, but the actual unified nation of Scotland wasn't really that old. So what they had to do is they had to take all of the varying kings of tribes and whatnot that were like the Pictish tribes and stuff.
Yeah.
And they just kind of smashed them all together and created this history. So like from that point on, you'd have these people, these Scottish kings or nobles or whatever, talking about this grand tradition of Scottish blood going back thousands of years, and it's like, actually, no, this only is about like 100 years old.
Yeah. No, the blood of kings has to start somewhere. It's funny there too, because they're so closely knit to England that a lot of it is like, the history kind of blends together, and you kind of lose track of who's going where and who's marrying who, to a point where I guess you feel like it doesn't really matter. You take the Dax opinion there, where it's like, none of this is particularly relevant to anything.
Not so much anymore. At the time, it was very contentious.
Very contentious. Yes. Let's see here. I thought that I thought this is like a pretty good use of Dax. Like, I think we've complained before about like the use of the Dax character, and I think that Terry Farrell works better in certain situations than she does in others. I think this is a pretty good Dax episode.
Yeah, I think so too.
Where
this might actually be one of my favorite Dax episodes.
Yeah, like I think Farrell's pretty good in the post-party scenes and during the party stuff. Like she should have been written more as the carefree spirit that they tried to sort of fix her into, but at a certain point they want her to be the consigliere to Sisko, but she actually works better as this kind of a character, as both an actor and as like a in canon or in universe character, I think.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just she doesn't, she even brings this up in like the documentary or something. She doesn't have the like experience and age as an actress to play the consigliere role really well. Like they can write it for her, but it never really feels believable when she's giving Sisko advice. And here I like them flipping the tables where Sisko gives her advice and she actually listens to it and it works out for her.
Yeah, I think it would have been beneficial if they had, because I don't think they have to be mutually exclusive. I think they could have written her as a more carefree consigliere type, where instead of being the serious, wizened one who, gives the serious advice, she gives the serious advice, but she does it in a sort of flippant way. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Which I think would have probably played to Farrell's strengths a little better.
Yeah. It's
kind of more like I hate to keep making the comparison to the Doctor from Doctor Who, but it's a fairly apt comparison.
Yeah,
guess.
right.
But,
they're the same kind of construct of a character and everything.
But you have that character is ultra smart and everything, and wizened and has all this experience, but is still portrayed in a very sort of light and carefree way until it counts.
Yeah.
And I think that would have been an interesting way to play her in this.
I'll get my one sort of issue, I think, with this episode out of the way, and then we'll move to final thoughts. I don't care. It totally makes sense in context of the tone of the episode, but I don't like the way that Odo and Kira reconcile in this.
Yeah.
It's a joke because it's a comedy episode. They make it, and I think the joke actually kind of works for what it is, but I think that the reconciliation there is probably a little bit deeper than them just hanging out sort of like a post 3 a.m. college house party where you stumble onto somebody having a conversation and they walk out awkwardly. But what'd you think?
I liked it. I'm really happy that they weren't making out with each other when she opened the door. But yeah, I agree. For something, I'm kind of two minds about it, because on the one hand, like, I don't want to be there when they have to talk about how he was off having sex with his mom for a while or whatever that was. But yeah, I feel like there's probably a better scene in there somewhere where they actually, have to address stuff. But, I don't know. If you're just trying to get on with it and stuff, I'm of two minds of it because I think it could go either way. You could have a scene where it's like a really intense scene where they're really hashing it out and everything. But like in real life, a scene like, I feel like this is not entirely unbelievable that, these two people who have had this shit happen between the two of them just end up talking for a while and then they're just kind of back to normal. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It was a big deal what Odo did, and probably deserves a heavier hand as far as how Kira feels about everything. But
especially because they seem to stress to me that she didn't report on what Odo did. It seems because no one seems to know why they're not talking to each other. So
yeah,
I think that implies that it's a much more serious event than the reconciliation here comes across. Because if it was just a minor thing, I feel like Kira would have told them all about what Odo did, and everyone would be aware of it. And then a lighthearted, easygoing reconciliation like the one they have here makes a little bit more sense to me.
Yeah. I would agree, I think.
I don't think it's a problem with the episode. It's just, I also agree that I don't know if I wanted to see it stretched out, really. Like, they don't need the rest of the season for them to be at odds or him avoiding her or things like that. Because
I think part of it is that they're playing it more like a personal relationship squabble than a Odo almost got everybody killed squabble.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Because like the way that they're playing everything feels like two friends who have had a really awkward thing happen between them and are not talking to each other, who then, because of this party and the loose atmosphere, get a chance to talk, and they're back to normal, that kind of thing. But what actually happened is a little heavier than that.
Yes.
But they chose to go with the awkwardness between friends thing rather than the you almost caused us to lose the war thing.
Right. What were you thinking? Yeah, that's really my only quibble with it. I think otherwise it's a pretty good episode. Let's take a break. We're going to play an audio clip. We'll come back. We'll read some patron thoughts, give our final thoughts, and then we will wrap this one up.
Miles. Yeah. It's working. I've had a vision about the future. I can see it so clearly. What is it? I'm gonna kill Worf.
All right, everybody. So comment below with your favorite wedding / bachelor party / bachelorette party experience. And then maybe we'll read some of the good ones on the podcast next episode. But yeah, there's some other one. Maybe I'll come up and think of some other ones actually, and we can have a whole little preamble to the next episode. But
that would be an interesting Patreon topic.
It would be an interesting, the most scandalous wedding stories that you've ever seen. If you like the content today, you can support the show at patreon.com/thepensky-file. It's a good way to support the show. Keeps things running smoothly, shows your appreciation, all that stuff. It's much appreciated from our angle, too. And as always, the Captain tier supporters get a shout out here. So special thanks go to Andrew Cherlog, Ben Douglas, Bradley Killens, Captain Quark, Cardinal Doomsday, Christian Pouch, David K., Dwayne Hackett, Eric Johnson, Yarpy, Joint Mango, Kevin Reyes, Kyle Barrett, Matt Flores, Matt Cutler, Matt Ross, Mike Burnett, Nathan Elliott, Neil Brennan, Nick Sergi, Robert Cummins, Russell Elledge, Samuel Custer, Grim Santo, Sean Spinobi, Stephen Cobb, Tark Latif, and Will Yates. Thank you very much for supporting the show. Now we read our patron thoughts. If you're a patron at patreon.com/thepensky-file, you get to leave your thoughts about upcoming episodes. We read them. Will Yates says, you are cordially invited. Clearly, whoever taught Worf to fight also taught Alexander physical comedy. The final scene between Dax and the Klingon woman didn't seem earned at all. So come one, come all, and you won't not be not loving this episode. Kind of a letdown given all the time they've spent on talking about this wedding. I give it a year. I'll flesh it out further. I liked Alexander in this. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm at the point in the series where I kind of like just like the quirky, weird take. If some character comes in, it's just like, wow, that's a strange thing that this actor chose to do. But I like that he's kind of a doofus. I like that they built off of that. His comedy seems Yeah, not great, but it's in the long tradition of not great physical comedy, I think, on Star Trek. So he fits in wonderfully there. Let's see here.
Hello.
Hello?
Sorry, I lost you there for a second.
We're back. I'll just cut that out. Norman Buckwald says, "You're cordially invited." Decides to show that Kira and Odo have a talk about what happened in the occupation without really showing it to us. In fact, until Bashir's investigation in the 10-episode season 7 arc, it appeared that Quark, Jake, Rom, and Lita kept quiet about Odo's temporary betrayal. The writers chose to cop out on a required scene by giving a backdrop of the wedding sitcom comedy episode, and that's all we got. As for the comedy in general of You're Cordially Invited, what made it successful was not Worf/Dax's dispute. Please, that's a required formula for an episode like this. But O'Brien and Bashir getting caught up in the Klingon bachelor party ritual. Still, how naive of both of them. They should have known that by now that engaging in any Klingon ritual would involve a minimum of pain sticks. Another winning moment of the episode was the wedding ceremony itself and the story of the Klingon couple defeating their gods. So what finally makes You're Cordially Invited succeed is actually all things Klingon. What did you think of the little play acting in the Klingon wedding?
I thought that was fun. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. It's funny that Klingon ceremonies become like sort of like third-rate theater troupes at a certain point where they dress like Shakespearean actors and hit each other with swords.
Yes.
Let's see. Cordially Invited. That is already done there. I did that one already. What is this? Oh, so many people typed invited. There we go. Christian Pouch. Actually, despite what you might think about it, the episode's not that bad. I actually love all the scenes in the cave with Worf and the boys, especially Bashir and O'Brien gleefully plotting how they will punish Worf. And again, Martok is great. Zim Nuclear Vessel says, "Hey, apparently Shelby made it to captain before Riker did. I am unsurprised." Is that a reference? I might have missed that reference.
Yeah,
They mentioned a Captain Shelby?
The Polynesian guy, I think.
Oh.
No, wait. Is that what it is?
It might be. That kind of he does mention his captain, yeah.
Yeah, she says that Captain Shelby owed me a favor or something like that, and got him days off so he could come to the party. I don't know, something like that.
Well, we need to have a Best of Both Worlds follow-up where Riker has to deal with the fallout of not getting that promotion. Andrew Cherlog, in typical DS9 fashion, we get a come-down episode after a long-run war story. The episode is good enough, and I definitely see people having a wedding under the circumstances, having had parishioners get married right before they deployed. I will admit that I laugh at the Klingon bachelor party every single time. Stephen Cobb, Dax calls her mother-in-law the descendant of a whore. Laugh out loud. Yarpy, I love Klingons probably because they're larger-than-life type of characters, and they're kind of Shakespearean. I like this episode, especially the scenes with Martok, who is one of my favorite characters in the show. Herzl does a great job with the role. I also liked his wife very much. She felt very much like the proud Klingon woman. The place where they had the Klingon bachelor party itself looked pretty inviting. I wonder how high the temperature went, as I usually heat my sauna to about 176 degrees, although fasting doesn't sound like too much fun.
You know, I think one of the things that's really different about these older shows and Star Trek Discovery is, could you imagine a scene like the Dax and mother-in-law scene happening with a human character like Michael Burnham and L'Rell or something?
Right.
You know, like the Klingons in Discovery are just so
alien,
unfunny. Yeah. Like they don't, they're so alien that it's, I mean, and maybe that's part of the what's interesting about them, because someone was telling me the other day that they had just started watching Discovery and actually really liked how alien the Klingons are, and I don't disagree. I think the makeup's a little much, but I don't know. I guess it's a taste thing. Yeah,
it does change the tone of the show when the aliens are so different that the interactions between them don't feel credible if they talk to each other like people talking to each other.
Yeah.
Like Star Trek, you can kind of say, well, it's the alien. You can always criticize and say the alien makeup is just like they put a little thing on their nose, or like make them wear an earring, or they put this little headpiece on them. Mm-hmm. But that seems to allow the people to have conversations where it feels like it's just two people talking to each other. It's not like it's an alien that's come in and you have nothing in common with each other. But it's a definite tone difference between the shows. It definitely isolates humanity more in Discovery. Where the Federation seems like it would be a tougher thing to assemble that way because no one shares any interests with each other.
Yeah, no.
Kyle Barrett says, the fact that Odo and Kira reconcile after everything that has happened in the occupation off arc screen in a closet is incredibly frustrating. Other than that, it's fine. O'Brien and Bashir are fun, and the comedy in the episode works, but the drama less so. I wish that they had played up the comedy more, and maybe I've just got Orville on the brain, which sounds like a terrible medical condition, but I was half expecting the episode to suddenly cut from the dramatic wedding to Worf singing karaoke at the wedding reception or something. But hey, it's better than the next episode. Run for the hills, Clay. Seriously, run for the fucking hills.
I was hoping that they would make sure to remind everyone they're in the middle of a war by, like, at the middle of the party, somebody drags in, like, an ensign who's been shot or something.
Right. he delivers a note to the wedding party and then drops dead.
Yeah.
Matthew Ross says, you're cordially invited. We now take a break in our war coverage for madcapped hijinks and cliches of a wedding comedy. The Dominion was so nice they stayed away and probably brought on the registry. And so we got the angry mother-in-law cliche, the scared father-in-law, Worf is actually the bride. I think I saw this as a Tom Hanks movie called Bachelor Party, which is better. The ridiculous bachelor party is an excuse to further ingrain Orthodox religion, and Dax is the party girl. So the hula fire thing was for, was he hanging around the set that week? Sisko's stern talking to Dax is the strongest part. The rest we've seen before. And that's it. Thank you very much, patrons, for supporting the show. Thank you for writing in and leaving your comments. Clay, on a scale of 1 to 5, what are you going to give you a cordially invited ...
I think I'm going to go with a 4 on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 4 as well. Yeah, I really like it.
Good stuff.
Yeah, it's it was kind of nice to come back to a low key sort of silly episode after that. Not that the Warwick was bad or anything, but it's like it does remind you that the breadth of the show genres that Star Trek can do. Like, it's nice to sort of bounce around and get different things to go on. To have a comedy episode and something lighthearted and a little bit silly.
Yeah, I thought it was one of the more successful comedy episodes because everything was kind of nothing was overly broad except for Alexander at the beginning there. But it was. I thought it was well done, and the character stuff. I mean, the comedy was more or less born from character stuff, and yeah, I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 4 as well. I think it's a pretty solid episode. Thank you guys very much for listening. Thank you for supporting the show. Patreon.com/ThePensky File if you want to support us there. All the social media links are down below. And I think that's it. Clay, do you have anything you want to say?
Again, we got a Kickstarter going for a book I'm doing called Bloody Hell. Well, it's not going. It will be going in July, probably later July. So yeah, keep your eyes and ears open for that.
Yep, we'll be putting a link up to that when it happens, so you can stay tuned. If you want to support Clay that way, feel free. Obviously, it'd be much appreciated. With that, we are done. And so the next episode, Clay, that Kyle warned you about is Resurrection. We'll be back with Resurrection, where Mirror Universe Bareil returns. He's not dead. So we have Resurrection coming up in a couple days.
I'm real busy.
Thank you guys for listening. Mazel tov, and this is where we step on the glass to end the episode wedding. So see you later.